Thanks for joining us on our comic book coffee break. I'm Nick Gunning.
And I'm Eric Mickles, known online as Dusk vs. Tweak.
Today I'm drinking Papa Nicholas French Roast Black on ice because it's a scorcher today, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. I'm drinking Mug root beer in a. You like to point out what kind of mug you're drinking from normally. I've got a mug, and it's, again, because I'm a right-hander, I see the image, but I have to hold it left-handed for the camera to see it. It's a mug that has an old-style car on it, and it says Eric.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know where this came from. Did you get me this?
I sure don't think so.
You don't remember, getting this for me at some kind of, thrift store just randomly?
No,
look, it's a mug that says your name.
Actually, you know what? I think maybe I did. I think you're right about that.
Okay.
I think you're right. I do remember that now.
All right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My mug, so I worked at an academic library for a couple years. It had a big ceramic, program. And there was a bunch of just discarded ceramic mugs in the staff kitchen. I used this one every day for 2 years. It's got a really weird low handle. You can only get one finger in there. It's a weird mug. Yeah. But when I left that job, this mug came with me, and I never looked back.
This show is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. You can find more about this show and others like it on our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com.
What other shows, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. We have 90210 Here We Go, a 90210 rewatch podcast hosted by a 90210 expert and a 90210 novice. We've got Three Nice Things, where we force ourselves to say 3 nice things about a movie with a bad and often earned reputation. Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks back at X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. And Radio 64, featuring video game music remix radio. Woo! Now let's talk comic books. How you doing this week, buddy?
I'm doing good.
I have been monitoring your Goodreads.
Yes.
As I do. And a weird batch that we're going to be talking about today, and I'm looking forward to it.
I guess it is a weird batch.
It is.
But
You've gone very non-traditional lately. I like it. I like it.
Did you have to stop yourself from saying you're here for it?
No.
Okay. You and my wife Kendra on your 90210 podcast, that I've reached the point where both of you are now saying you're here for it on a kind of a regular basis. Yeah. So it's been fun hearing that now. I'm here for that. Nice. I'm here for you guys saying you're here for that when it comes to Luke Perry.
Look, Kendra and I are very hip. And you don't have to feel that's not a reflection on you. You know what I mean? You don't have to take that to heart.
Because you guys say I'm here for that, somehow you're thinking I'm not cool anymore?
I hope you are, yeah.
Okay.
I hope the message is coming across.
We are talking the comic books that we've been reading this week.
Right. That's right.
It's been a week. Who wants to start?
Well, okay, sure, I will go.
Okay.
I had been reading classic Captain America, and I've been reading Avengers. So this week I got into the Captain America comic that started in 2011. So it still is Ed Brubaker, and I have not read the whole Death of Captain America and everything that came before that. I haven't read that.
Yeah.
I just jumped on to this number one because it was concurrent with the Avengers and the other things that I was reading at the moment. So I have not read a ton of modern Captain America, and I really haven't read until very recently any Captain America at all, really. So it's been an interesting ride, but I really like this one. And I also just rewatched Captain America: Civil War, which we'll get into in a minute. But both this volume and Civil War start with Peggy Carter's funeral, so a lot of connections there.
Okay.
As far as you can tell that with restarting with number one in this. And even the marketing on it's if you're a fan of the Winter Soldier, now's a perfect time to get into Captain America.
Sure, yeah. So I can see why they would want the number one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does make sense. And honestly, it's probably the reason why, it's working on me almost 10 years later, because I don't know that I would have just picked up Captain America 650, but the start to a new series, I was yeah, let's do it. So I really liked this. I really liked it. I liked his take on the character. It was a lot of Agent 13 is in this, and she's been in a lot of the retro Captain America I've been reading, as well as the movies. So it all felt very familiar to me, and it was an interesting plot where an old World War II era villain is back and has this power to seep into dreams and create this sort of I don't know, you're not really quite sure what's a dream and what's not. And so I think the author, it's Ed Brubaker and Steve McNiven is the illustrator here, but I think
Right.
the author is really using a good approach here to flesh out the characters a little bit because at this point, Brubaker's been writing Captain America for how long? In 2011, many years,
Gosh,
right?
yeah, I don't know when his whole like Winter Soldier arc started, but maybe 2005. I could be wrong about
Okay.
that.
So like we do not need a rebirth, reorigin kind of story for Captain America here. We don't need that. But I do feel like they did a nice job of sort of catching you up to speed and bringing other elements of the Captain America mythos in there,
Hmm.
but in just a really cool, exciting story. So I loved it. I was very pleasantly surprised and impressed by it.
Right.
So that was
I
Marvel.
remember liking this one.
Okay.
According to Goodreads, I gave it like 4 stars. After I saw you review it, yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I don't think I liked the next volume much.
Oh, that's
So
disappointing.
I think what I was kind of feeling. Yeah, I only gave the second volume 2 stars. Holy cow! Did I finish this whole series? Yeah, I did. I don't know what it was about volume 2, but I guess maybe I felt like Brubaker was starting to feel a bit tired after having
Oh,
done Captain America for so long.
well, that's kind of how I feel about latter day Scott Snyder on Batman.
Oh snap!
You know what I
But
mean? Like it
yeah.
kind of hits that point where you're like, okay, I think you've said what you need to say.
So yeah, I remember liking this volume, though I don't remember why. But I gave it 4 stars, and I'm stingy with my 4 stars.
You are, I know that.
So
Yeah.
I'll give 3 stars out like There's No Tomorrow,
Yeah.
which is actually what I was feeling with what I realized when I was reading Storm.
Okay.
So Storm, I think it's just called Storm.
Okay.
Or X-Men Storm. It's by Warren Ellis and Terry Dodson. Ellis is the writer, Dodson's the artist. This is from like 1996. It's a 4-issue series. It's Storm's first solo miniseries that she gets, if you don't count
Okay.
the Ileana and Storm thing, because
Right.
it's not really Storm. So yeah, because normally I'll just give 3 stars out to whatever on Goodreads, but this one I gave 2 stars because it's just it's pointless. It feels pointless. A big problem this has is that it's like it's a Storm comic, but really it's just Storm dealing with plot threads that were going on in 1995 and 96 with the X-Men.
Oh, okay.
So it's a Storm comic because it's involving the Morlocks, but
Okay.
it's involving the Morlocks that Colossus's brother Mikhail had taken into a different dimension. And so we thought the Morlocks were dead in the 90s, and then we find out that Mikhail Rasputin had taken them into an interdimension and was messing with them and torturing them and all this stuff. And then they come back as Gene Nation, and at one point Storm tore out Marrow's heart, because this is like around this introduction of Marrow. She took out her heart. And she's like, "I've killed."
Okay.
And
Wow.
so,
I'll say.
but
I'll
so
say she
this is Storm gets brought into that universe now and has to deal with Mikhail. Except Mikhail Rasputin is not a Storm character or villain.
yeah.
I mean, Storm has that weird connection with the Morlocks and that she beat Callisto for leadership back in the early Claremont days.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that the Morlocks always have to be in the sewers, story-wise.
Right, yeah.
So Storm and the X-Men always look like they're really bad at both being a leader and like humanitarians, because they're just like, oh yeah, we know a bunch of people who live in the sewers.
Yeah,
We're
sewer
fine.
people.
Yeah, let's go back to
Sewer
our
people.
mansion. And so like Storm in this, she's like, I was a bad leader, and it's like, well, yeah, you were. You let them keep living in the sewers.
Sounds like it. Really sounds like it.
But with Mikhail and no Colossus in this, it's just kind of, and then Cable's here, and the whole point is everybody thinks Storm has died because she went into the other dimension, and Cable's certain of it, and Cable is being like really sad about it and just kind of brooding about it for 4 issues, but he has like no connection with Storm at this point. None of the other X-Men really believe she's dead, but nobody's doing anything about it. It's a really crappy comic, a really boring story that maybe gets some life out of Terry Dodson, but like as a Storm solo thing, this has nothing really to say about Storm. It's all just place setting for like the general X-Men, which is too bad. I mean, she gets later she'll get like her own comics and stuff, but like this 4-parter, it's it's all just place setting. It's very skippable. So
I read forever ago. I read it's like remember when Marvel was putting out those digest-sized paperbacks? And it was called Aurora Before the Storm, and it's a storm, set in Africa, and it's like a storm origin. I always thought that was really good.
I've never read that one.
I think that's probably the only solo storm thing I ever read, but I just thought the look of the book was really good, and I thought they fleshed out the origin well. And it's kind of like Storm's version of Smallville, where like you see her sort of growing into it and using the powers, but you never actually she's Storm. It's the X-Men.
Yeah.
But I thought that was I think that's a decent place to start if you're a fan of the X-Men and Storm and are looking at like early day stuff.
I haven't read a lot of like X-Men solo books because I tend not to think the X-Men in general need to have solo books. Wolverine's like the only one I feel like has ever been able to cut it. Because he has claws. That's funny. But yeah, this one did not warm me to that concept. But I think she may have 2 other solo series, or maybe she just has the one. I'm not sure. I
think there are a couple.
So I'll check those out at some point. This is kind of research because we might be spotlighting her over on previously on X-Men.
Oh, interesting. So okay,
I had to read it, but yeah, unless you care about that stuff, which I talked about, you don't have to read this. This won't be a solo. This is not a solo Storm thing. Probably check out the one Nick suggested.
Yeah, that was decent. I remember liking that.
Yeah, the digest thing had a moment. There was a moment for those things.
I liked it. I thought they utilized those well, but it didn't last very long.
Was that the one that that's when like the Runaways showed up, and it had that Sentinel one that I haven't read. But also, is it the Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Spider-Woman moved over to the digest, right?
Spider-Girl.
Spider-Girl,
Mayday Parker, yeah. Yeah, I read a lot of those. Those were fun. And there was also spin-offs of that book, like the equivalent of the Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Five or something like that, set in that same timeline. Yeah, I read quite a few of those, but there was that. There was the X-Men Firestar one, Spider-Man Human Torch. Yeah. A lot of really good stuff there. It was nice, too, because it was like... That was like when I was in college and broke, and those were like $5.99, versus like $20 for.
You were already buying the Archie digest. What's the Spider-Man digest?
I'm used to digest. Let's do it. Let's dive right into that. Yeah. All right. Let's see. I feel like I read mostly retro comics this time around, not on purpose. It
retro
happened that way. Yeah. But let's talk Jack Kirby for a minute. How about that?
Okay.
I mentioned back in our first episode that my true introduction to Jack Kirby's Fourth World, the New Gods and all that, was the action figures, the Superpowers line of action figures that then spawned the Superpowers 3 miniseries written and drawn by Jack Kirby.
Right.
But this, I have my my Mr. Miracle here that I got in the late 80s. Did not know who this was. I didn't know who it was. It was just part of the line, It was part of the Superpowers line. It was like towards the end, it was like all New Gods, and I just wanted them. So I remember my grandparents got me this, and he had like little chains, and you squeeze his legs, and his arms would pop out, like break the chains. Mm-hmm. So this is my introduction to Mr. Miracle.
Okay.
And back when we interviewed Steve Englehart over on the All the Books show, SoundCloud.com/allthebooks or anywhere you get your podcasts. Yeah. I was reading just like every Steve Englehart thing that I could. And so I read his Mr. Miracle. And those take place, they pick up the numbering from Jack Kirby. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of read like later in this series. And so I just went back and read Jack Kirby's Mr. Miracle Volume 1. How familiar are you with this?
With this? Not
at all.
I've only read one Mr. Miracle thing. It was the Tom King.
Which you were not about.
I was and I wasn't. There were things I liked that really worked for me, and then there were other things I'm like, okay, Tom King, dial it down a bit.
It's a dark take, right? I mean, the whole predicated on darkness. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did not find
predicated on darkness.
Well,
continue. Yes.
I find Mr. Miracle to be as well fleshed out as the New Gods book by Kirby. Baby Scott-Free is introduced in Kirby's New Gods, but they don't really. It's just kind of like a
Baby Scott-Free is a type of diaper.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. It's a cut rate.
Baby Scott-Free is soft, and your baby won't even know it's wearing it.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So it's not really fleshed out. It's just kind of a nice little Easter egg, I think, for the later series. When you're reading Mr. Miracle, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I remember this name. So
is that somebody from Fargo remembering Mr. Miracle?
Yeah, could be. So this is like it starts with you see Mr. Miracle doing a daring escape and everything. He takes off the mask and like, what? It's this old guy.
Hmm.
And so then it's kind of about Scott Free coming in and taking like assuming the role of Mr. Miracle.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I don't quite reading this whole thing, I never was quite understanding the premise. Like he's an escape artist magician, but also like a new god and connected to the new gods. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like somewhere in there, I
He's
feel like
he's the son of the guy on the other side, isn't he?
well, yes, but I don't at this point like I don't think in the first volume that's really spelled out. It's
Okay.
hinted at, and the bit in New Gods you understand that like Granny Goodness and all that they're doing something with Scott
Mm-hmm.
Free, and
Right.
so you kind of you know that he has a clouded past, but
Right.
I don't know. It just wasn't as there wasn't quite a clear through line like
Mm-hmm.
there was in the New Gods book.
Okay.
So maybe that's all because I want to say Kirby did like maybe 18 issues of it before
Oh
Englehart
well.
takes over.
Okay.
So there's a second volume of Kirby's Mr. Miracle,
All
and
right.
there's not a second volume of New Gods. So it's one of
Right.
his longer DC runs.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read that, and I sort of assume that a lot of things that are set up early on are going to pay off in the latter half of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Big Barda's introduced here, and the stuff with her was good. I
Mm-hmm.
liked how they used that character.
Yeah.
But I'll probably put this a notch below Mr. Miracle or of New
New
Gods.
Gods. Okay.
I'm gonna read volume 2, and there's maybe like 3 issues post Englehart
Mm-hmm.
that a new author takes over, and I'm just gonna read the whole thing.
I'm looking forward to the Justice League Snyder cut to show us that Zack Snyder did have a Mr. Miracle cameo. He gets shot in the head and killed, and then when we complain, he says, "Oh, we can still have fun without him, right?"
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So not excited about the Snyder cut. Is that?
All right. What now?
You got more you want to talk about?
I sure got more.
Let's do it.
I read Castlevania: The Belmont Legacy.
Okay.
Castlevania: The Belmont Legacy is. Oh, this is saying 5 issues. I thought it was only 4 issues. Well,
Okay.
however many issues it was probably 1 issue too many, but also nothing really happened in here. It's by Mark and Draco, and EJ Sue's the artist. EJ Sue's art is probably it's a weak point for sure. It has this like almost you know how libraries will get those graphic novelizations of like classic in public domain books like we've got White Fang.
I do. Yes,
and like
I do
the
know
art
that.
is always just like, well, we did find an artist technically. Technically this person is an artist.
Yeah.
It's a notch above that art-wise.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I feel the same way about the anime. Why is it so hard to do Castlevania outside of the video games? It's just Dracula, vampire, monster action. And the anime...
There are certainly archetypes to pull from for that.
Yeah.
You're not like inventing the wheel every time you draw Dracula.
Yeah, and the anime is very much like, but what role did the Catholic Church play in the Dracula mythology? I'm like, oh my gosh, bore me to tears for how
Your
many
phrasing was very Fozzie Bear when you were saying that.
Catholic
Church play.
And then it's just a story of a different Belmont. I don't know the timeline with Castlevania is not a part that I really understand, but it's dealing with
You're
one of the
telling
Belmonts getting married, and Dracula is
nice.
being brought back and is kidnapping his bride, and it's light on action, but also light on everything else. It feels very meandering. So without like strong brooding art and without like action that feels like it came from the game, it's really I don't know. It's a poor adaptation.
Okay.
I thought it was just gonna be a fun, quick Castlevania comic that I was gonna have a fun time with, and I didn't really. I don't know. It just seems so easy. You just have him fight monsters that you fight in Castlevania. Just have him use a whip and maybe throw some other stuff at him. But this one is like, oh, we have to get into like the family relations and the betrayals and all. It's just, who plays Castlevania for the story?
Not this guy.
Yeah. So anyway, I was bummed by that.
How'd you happen to come across this? Just a fan of the franchise and found this?
I don't remember if I looked it up or if it was recommended to me. It might have been recommended to me by Comixology. It might have been like, hey, you've been enjoying this, you wacky guy. What about some Castlevania? I don't think it called me wacky guy. Maybe it came up because I was reading the Torok, and it was like...
You made Comicsology sound like a carnival Parker.
Yeah.
Hey there, wacky guy. Step right up.
I think maybe because I read Turok, it suggests, and like G.I.
Oh.
Joe in the past and stuff, it was like, you might like
Yeah.
Castlevania. So,
And it sounds like they'd be right, but
yeah.
this led you astray.
Yeah.
I understand.
And maybe Shadow Man, so it's like, he's playing all these Nintendo 64 games. There was a Castlevania on the 64. There were 2 of them.
2.
They're fine, I think. They weren't liked at
Okay.
the time, and now they're kind of thought of like decent at least. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, Castlevania
All right.
the comic. I'd say pass unless you're a
So-
diehard
Yeah, okay.
Castlevania completist. Who
Is there more? Like, is this just the only one, or is this just?
I didn't really get into it. Maybe there.
Okay.
Oh, this is all it is for this series, I believe. This was
Okay.
like in 2005. It ends on like a kind of a cliffhanger, but meh.
Okay.
Pass.
Here's an odd one I read. This is an uncollected miniseries called Black Goliath, set up by Tony Isabella, but the majority of it is written by Chris Claremont. And I was really only familiar with his character from he was in Ant-Man. Yeah, he was from Ant-Man. I read him in Ant-Man season 1.
Oh, right.
And yeah, of course, Lawrence Fishburne in
Bill
Ant-Man
Foster?
and the Wasp.
Is his
Mm-hmm.
full name?
Yep, Bill Foster. Yep, Bill Foster.
Yeah, Foster.
Yeah, it's funny too because there are some images of him that really look like a young Lawrence Fishburne, like the jawline and everything. It's just like it's. So that made me laugh, but I didn't really know much about the character. But it's interesting how he's presented. I mean, he's like a scientist who works for the CDC and works with like Tony Stark and Hank Pym, but he gets powers where he can grow to 10 feet. And then a lot of the book, it's 5 issues, but the early issues are him struggling to decide whether like he wants to be like a superhero.
Right.
Like, just because he has these powers, he doesn't really know that that's something that he wants to do. And so he's kind of reluctant in the beginning, but it's of course picking up enemies and like, working with Stark along the way, get a little romance along the way. And by the last issue, and I don't really know the history of this. I don't know that if it was meant to be an ongoing series or if it was like a 5-issue and that's it situation. But everything leading up to it was very like, he's a scientist. He lives in this apartment. He's fighting villains. It's all very like that. The final issue, he and his like circle of friends get transported to outer space, and his friends put on like sparkly green outfits because their clothes are damaged, and they have this like intergalactic battle, and that's the last issue. And it was so weird because it was just completely out of left field.
Right.
And like, I liked it. I liked the space issue, but it just could not have been more surprising to me that suddenly this character's like in space.
Right.
So it was weird. It was weird, but I liked it.
When was this? Do you remember? Do you know the year? 76.
1976. Yep.
So even before Star Wars, unless maybe the last issue was out just as Star Wars was coming out. Maybe, I don't know.
Possible. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, but it was funny. It was so strange. And his costume is funny too because it's basically like a reverse Power Girl where like only his cleavage is covered and his whole it's just like a big rectangular cutout that is his whole like washboard abs.
Poor Power Girl.
Interesting. Okay.
That you could say a reverse Power Girl, and we're like, yeah, we know what that is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I did like it. It was cool. I would definitely read more of the character, and I liked the space arc. But interesting to see where that went.
I don't know if he gets any more like solo series after this.
So I checked, and I couldn't find anything.
Though he does start going by just Goliath, which was a smart move.
Yeah.
So. This is in Marvel where any black character was called Black, and then Black Falcon, Black Goliath. It was, and then later like, oh, we can just call him the Falcon, huh? Interesting.
Yep.
So, Goliath. I remember he was in Civil War. The Civil War comic. I guess it was supposed to be what? Should I put up the spoiler tag? Spoiler tag, come in. Spoiler tag, I guess, for the 2006-2007 Civil War comic by Mark Millar and the guy who did your Captain America one.
Brubaker?
No, the art.
Oh, Steve McNiven?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, it's like issue 4. We find out there's a cyborg Thor that Reed Richards and the others have created, and Goliath stands up in front of him to take him down, and he gets shot through the chest with a bolt of lightning. And the reason I put up the spoilers tag is because I don't think he's come back since.
Yeah. That could be true.
So I think
Yeah.
I know they used something about his character later, but I don't think I'm not sure he's ever come back from Civil War.
I mean, it's a cool character, and I really like the way Lawrence Fishburne plays him in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think
Yeah,
it's a good use of the character.
yeah.
So it was funny too because I also read Iron Man Duel of Iron,
Duel of
which is
Iron.
which is the Epic Collection number 11 by
Mm-hmm.
Denny O'Neil. This is collected in such a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Epic collections are numbered, but there's only like it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, and then like 13, 14, 15, 16. Like there's whole swaths of
Oh, you know
issues
what? I saw
that
that
are
with
uncollected.
I saw that going on with New Mutants, and I think it's because for New Mutants, it seems like a big chunk of them are just collected in like X-Men Inferno and X-Men Follow the
Okay.
Mutants and stuff. So I don't know. Is that happening with Iron Man then?
I don't think so because I was trying to find where the rest of because Denny O'Neil writes from oh geez
Uh huh.
like 19 sorry, issue 160 of Iron Man
Mm-hmm.
to issue 208.
Okay.
And so the Epic
Wow.
collection, this one that I just read goes to 95.
Uh huh.
And then like issue 93 to issue 200 are collected in the Ironmonger trade.
Mm-hmm.
But then 200 or 201 to 208 are not collected at all,
Weird.
and the collection doesn't pick up again for another like 20 issues, and then it's collected as issue or as Epic Collection number 13.
So you still haven't read the Ironmonger stuff?
No, I read the Ironmonger stuff a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just so weird because
Mm-hmm.
they're labeled. I mean,
Yeah.
they're called 10, 11, and
Yeah.
13, and there just is no 12.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing to try to follow it in that
Mm-hmm.
way. So I'm just gonna read the uncollected 8 issues just to like round out
Sure.
the Denny O'Neil Iron Man.
Yeah.
I don't have much good to say about this one. I
Okay.
was pretty impressed with the first Denny O'Neil Epic Collection that I read, but this one, Tony just being a washed up alcoholic, just like still wearing like a ripped up tuxedo and like a full beard,
Uh-huh.
wandering around like getting drunk in every issue,
Uh-huh.
is just so unpleasant to read.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasts for so long. It's like 30 issues of Tony just like stumbling from bar to bar.
Yeah.
And this one actually did see a little bit of movement on it, but then it becomes this like protracted rivalry between Tony and Rhodey. And I don't know, I just found it really unpleasant to read. It was
Okay.
like those Tony's drunkenness and then the rivalry with Rhodey really were the main focus, and I don't feel like there was a lot of overall story
Right.
develop, and both of those stories really felt like they were in a holding pattern for the whole issue. Like you could have done what relationship wise, I think you could have done that in the course of 1 or 2 issues, but it was like 30. So
Have you thought about maybe talking to Tony about this problem and how it's kind of pushing you away?
Sure. Yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. He won't listen.
Yeah.
He won't listen until about issue 198,
Okay.
and then he came around.
All right. So
yeah.
not digging this part.
No, and the Ironmonger trade is weird because like the way it's collected, Ironmonger is not even in it until like the last issue in that trade. So it's just a strange. I feel like there must be some rights issue that's holding up the true like Ironmonger issues. I don't know what.
I don't know. I read an Ironmonger trade a while ago. I remember it being pretty good.
We read the same one, but
Oh.
Ironmonger doesn't come in until the last 2 issues.
Oh.
Out of like the 8 that are collected. It's
Yeah.
all lead up. And then, like I said, like the next 25 issues or so are just not collected anywhere. So
All right.
very bizarre.
Yeah.
What about you? What else you got? Did you read anything? Did you read any like Marvel DC, or are you all off the grid
I
this
read
time?
Storm.
Storm, that's right.
Yeah,
I
she's
forgot.
Marvel. I read 1996's Storm comic.
Sure. Yes, of course. Yep.
I read Alan Moore's Top 10.
Okay.
Alan Moore working with Gene Ha. So it's a Vertigo comic.
Mhm.
Is what this is saying. Though I had thought this was part of a different publishing line, but I guess it's not. It's part of Vertigo. Anyway, Top 10 by Alan Moore. It's 12 issues, so you can get the big omnibus that's just the 12 issues, or the 2 graphics that are the first. Either way.
Okay.
So I read through all this because it was free on Comixology. It's Alan Moore. I haven't read too much of his other like I've read his Watchmen, and I read V for Vendetta, but I've never read like From Hell or his a lot of his other stuff outside of like
Okay.
the DC stuff he did, like his Batman work and Swamp Thing and stuff. But I have like his later stuff I've never really gotten into. So I gave top 10 a look. I wasn't really sure what it's about. It's a world where every single person is a superhero of some, or at least has a superpower.
Okay.
And so it's focused on this police force, the top 10 members of this police that police this world, that police at least this city. It's kind of like Alan Moore's Astro City in a way, because there's some homages to stuff. At one point, I mean, everything is just so wacky. There's a ridiculous scene where one of the characters' mom, her house has mice in it, but they're super mice. They're like super science mice. And so they all have powers and they're super destructive. So the exterminator comes in with like super cats to take care of them. And then he calls up and says there's complications because what happened is the super cats and the super mice were fighting in such a powerful way with so many weird powers that it creates a crisis of like infinite Earth situation in this woman's like kitchen with these mice. And so there's like a Cosmo mouse and all this stuff. And then there's a hilarious twist, maybe like a couple issues later where maybe you forgot about this. And the guy's there, he's like, I need my money. They're like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh no, they went back in time and stopped it from ever happening. This keeps happening. And so like the guy's never getting paid for his extermination because of those effects. But it's funny because it's like 12 issues. There is some like an overarching story in some ways, but it's very episodic. Even though like the characters are dealing with certain issues through all this thing, but like it's not this epic story. It's just kind of like 12 issues of the day in the life of this police force of superpowered people. But the art's fun. Gene Ha's art is pretty good. A lot of like fun designs in there. The characters are fun. There's some cool moments. There's some sad moments. So I liked it. It's a pretty good one. So
wow. Okay. Yeah. Sounds very bizarre, but
it is very bizarre. Like I say Astro City, but there's also some of that Warren Ellis's Transmetropolitan in there. I thought it was like Wildstorm, the Wildstorm imprint. This was like 1998, 1999. So like a weird time for like the non Marvel DC superhero stuff. Kind of like we're on the verge of the new millennium and everything. Just a lot of like weird ideas coming from the like House of Grant Morrison and stuff.
Y2K, what are you gonna do?
But yeah, I liked it. It's a dense read. There's a lot of stuff there. It's not like a quick just kind of cruise through it. And maybe if you hear me say it's Alan Moore, that makes sense to you. But yeah, it's a good filling read. So I like Top 10 by Alan Moore.
All right, nice and hearty. All right.
Yeah, a hearty breakfast.
I read one a little off the beaten path, and this is one of my son's absolute favorites. I read Lunch Lady and the Cyborg Substitute by Jared J. Kurzaka.
Do I need to put up the spoiler tag here?
No, I don't think so. Okay. You know the series, don't you?
I know of the series. I've never picked up a Lunch Lady on my own.
Okay.
So,
Jared J. Kurzaka, who more recently has been, winning awards for his autobiographical graphic novel, Hey Kiddo.
But, right.
Yeah. But he has a series called Draw Every Day with JJK, which has just been on YouTube for the duration, I feel like, since the very early days of the quarantine and everything. And this has just been a lifesaver for us. My son just loves it. And what I appreciated about it as a parent is that it is fun, it's entertaining, but it is actually like he's really learning things like drawing techniques. And I just, we see some of the things that he does, and he's drawing a lot of Lunch Lady characters because that's been a focus.
Right.
And it's really impressive what the author is able to get through through this YouTube show. So if you haven't, if you have kids or you're just interested in drawing or this author, it's Draw Every Day with JJK. And you can find it on YouTube. But anyway, my son just loves these Lunch Lady books. And so we're checking them out all the time. And I finally sat down and just read one cover to cover. And they're pretty clever. I mean, it's just about exactly what it sounds like. The lunch lady is like the hero of the book. She's a superhero. She has a whole secret base under the school, and she's got this sidekick named Betty who makes tools and spy gadgets out of everyday like kitchen
Mm-hmm.
appliances and things. What's clever about this series is that there's no explanation at all.
Mm-hmm.
It just starts and like the lunch lady's a superhero.
Right.
She's got the Ford under. It's all right there. So you
Mm-hmm.
just hit the ground running, and
Maybe there's a
it
dark,
was
gritty origin story later on in the
maybe
series
yeah.
where we learn how she did all this step by
But
step.
it just it was clever. It was engaging. It's a little serialized. The end of it set up like a cliffhanger for the next volume,
Mm-hmm.
and I get why my son is loving it so much. It's a great series for
Yeah.
that age because it is action packed and exciting, but it's not violent.
Uh-huh.
It's funny without being crude. I was really impressed with it. So it's
Okay.
called the one I read is the first one called Lunch Lady and the Cyborg Substitute.
Yeah.
Author's J. Frazaka, but there's I want to say 9 or 10 of these so far.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my off the wall read this week.
Okay. Right before we started recording this, during lunch, I finished Terminator Tempest by
Okay.
John Arcudi. It's collected in the Terminator Omnibus. This is a Dark Horse series in collection, and Dark Horse has been doing these for a while, putting out their omnibuses, and they're really
Yeah.
like hefty, impressive packages. They did this
Yeah.
back also when they still owned uh,
Star Wars.
the Star Wars stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
They
Yeah, I
they
know.
did
I've
like
read
the
several
old
of
like
these.
the early 90s Star Wars, like the Legacy of the Force or Legacy of the Jedi, all those origin stuff. But
I read the Droids and Ewoks collection.
yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Star Trek also. They did a lot of these with their
Yeah.
early Star Trek comics.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it
you're
seems
right.
like their thing was to just buy the rights for blockbuster films and then just put out a lot of like really cool comics. And I think that's the thing. Like the art, a lot of times, is this very cool, like late 80s, early 90s gritty art. This Terminator series, the one I read, it's 4 issues, I think. Terminator Tempest. I don't know because I was reading it in the omnibus, so there's no like
Yeah.
issue break. But it's set. It was published in 1990, so before Terminator 2. So it's a sequel to the first one.
Interesting.
And so it's kind of dealing with the Terminator remains from the first movie, being the result of the Terminator of Cybernet and everything. Not Cybernet. Boy, I can't remember anything from Terminator. Skynet. Skynet from becoming active as the Terminator remains. So it's doing that just the same way
You're
that
probably thinking Cyberdyne. That's something.
Cyberdyne from Terminator.
Yeah.
But anyway, it kind of has some similarities, but the idea is that a whole bunch of humans from the future invade a Terminator base, travel back in time, and they're going to work together, and they're going to kill the person who creates who works for Cyberdyne and creates the artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And a bunch of Terminators, maybe is it 3 or 4? Some Terminators come back in time after them now, and this is in LA, so they're all just chasing after each other. It's pretty violent. There's a lot of like really gruesome deaths in it, even though the art isn't as gruesome as it could be for those things. Death is cheap in this series for a lot of the characters. People just get blown in half by laser blasts. Wow. And there are some cool moments in the panels. Like there's a moment where one of the Terminators, they just blew up a building, and the Terminator's coming out kind of like half beaten like they like to be, so it's half skin, half metal.
Yeah,
and
sure. Oh yeah.
The panel's just him with the fire behind, and like I heard in my head the dun 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 dun. It was great. It was hard to read because it did remind me, not because of the story, it just made me think about Terminator Dark Fate, and that's not the fault of this, but yeah, it's I guess I was thinking about it, just how messed up the whole timeline is. Like it's one of those things where like any of the movies in any of these comics are either non-canon or they're all canon, the way the series has gone.
That's true.
So it's just an enjoyable Terminator story. It's dark enough, it's violent enough, it has that early 90s cool factor to it, but I'm going to keep going through this collection. I think the next one's actually like 1998, the next series that's in this omnibus.
I was trying
So,
to see if I had read any Terminator because I thought that I had. I thought because there's some DC crossovers, and I thought certainly I would have read that, but no, I haven't. I don't think I've never read one of the novels or novelizations, and I've never read any of the comic books.
Yeah,
So.
when we were talking, we did a back on the All the Books show. We did a what was it? Timothy Zahn. We did a Timothy Zahn spotlight, and we realized he had written some of the Terminator books.
T3, right? Didn't he write the post Terminator 3
the Terminator 3 books, and so I was like, maybe I'll check those out. So maybe at some time.
One of these days.
This one specifically, Terminator Tempest, is a pretty cool read. So,
are you going to read Superman versus Terminator: Death to the Future?
No, but I do hope to read the Terminator RoboCop miniseries.
Yeah.
So I've always that should be a movie right there. You know, just have RoboCop fight a whole bunch of them.
I can't believe I haven't read the Superman Terminator crossover. Doesn't that just seem like a? I feel like I've let everyone down with that.
Yeah, a bit. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what Superman I have read. And why don't you go ahead and throw up the spoiler for this one, because I think I have to say what it is to talk about it. I read the Superman Action Comics collection, The Oz Effect, by Dan Jurgens and Ryan Sook. So, I don't know if I've done it on this podcast, but I certainly have on the All the Book show, beaten up on the Rebirth era Superman. It's just, I don't know. Since classic Superman came back and assumed the mantle, it has just been basically 90% a parenting book, and it just gets so old. I'm just so tired of him being super dad and all that. It's just it's not been fun,
right?
And they've had a lot of really forced, there was a whole arc where there was just after the original Rebirth Superman dies, which I loved that whole story, and classic Superman comes back, there also a new Clark Kent appeared, and there was a whole arc about who is this Clark Kent, and it was boring, and the resolution was so stupid.
It's important that your most marquee character of your entire line is never streamlined in any fashion.
Seriously, it has just been awful.
Yeah.
And so
this is classic Superman from pre Flashpoint.
Yes.
But he's still wearing the all blue, no red trunks costume.
Is he in this?
On the cover he is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you're right. I can't remember. But for a long time with that Superman, every issue would be I know I'm not your Superman, or Batman would be well, my Superman would. Yeah. And it was just suffocating.
Yeah.
They have stopped that. And I will say, all of this is terrible lead-in for me to say that I did actually kind of like this story, The Oz Effect. There, in all of that convoluted nonsense, there has been this mysterious figure, and you haven't known who it is, and he's been communicating with John Kent, who's Superman and Lois's son, the current Superboy. And there's just been little hints about what's going on you don't know. And finally, it's revealed in The Oz Effect who this person is, or who he claims to be. Right. And I'm going to tell you right now, so if you don't want to know...
Spoiler warning!
It's Jor-El. It's and that's what we're led to believe. Who knows if it'll stick? But it's a Jor-El who survived the Kryptonian explosion and ended up in a different part of Earth and was trapped without powers, and finally regained powers, and has been monitoring Clark and everything. And it's just, that's a little convoluted. But I felt like the story overall was good, and it was also kind of not great for this moment in history, because Jor-El's plan is to sort of free up people to just express the things that they've always hidden about society.
Ugh.
Yeah. And so it feels very much like this moment in time. And so that was kind of I don't need more of that. But it was one of the more interesting stories of this era. And so for that, I have to give it credit. And I am slightly intrigued to see where it goes, because it sort of feels like John, Superboy, is really on the fence about whether or not he should trust Jor-El or not. And so I think that dynamic would make for sort of an interesting story going forward. So we'll see. But that was The Oz Effect.
The Oz Effect. All right. Hey, did you turn off all your lights? It got really dark all of a sudden.
I know. It's it got really... Yeah, it did get really dark. I'm going to go turn a light on in a second.
It's kind of scary, yeah.
I know.
It's kind of your... I don't know. What comic am I going to talk about next? Hold on, here it comes.
I'm back. Sorry. No, I didn't turn anything up, but I think it just got really overcast all of a
Scary.
sudden.
Yeah, you're about to get
Everything
hit.
got dark, and I couldn't see anything.
So real quick, I've
Yes.
caught up, or I didn't catch up, but I read up to issue 12 of Shadow Man.
Yeah.
So he was dealing with his new arch nemesis, I suppose. It was cool. It's always just kind of like his thought process. The character when he's Shadow Man, it's just he's always going a little bit crazy,
Okay.
which I like. So yeah, just continuing to like Shadow Man. Also, I just got volume 26 of Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh.
You
Excited
mentioned
about that new show.
Yeah, you mentioned that Netflix is doing Usagi Yojimbo's series, and I was like, where am I in Usagi at this point? And thanks to Goodreads, I remembered I'm on volume 26.
You were going hard on that for a while.
Yeah, well, I just haven't been able to find. I just haven't really looked for it in a while, and I was frustrated because there were a couple of volumes not on Comixology, even to buy. So I was like, where am I going to get this? And Nick, I got Usagi Yojimbo volumes 26 through 28 off of Hoopla from my local library. They had it digitally. Whoa, your camera just froze in a real creepy way. Wow. Did we lose you all together? Oh, we're reconnecting.
You got it on Hoopla.
I got it on Hoopla.
I heard.
Yeah. They have digital copies of Usagi Yojimbo on Hoopla. So I'm going to at least read these three, and then it looks like there's only... It goes up to volume 33, so it seems like I could catch up pretty quickly. Also, a bit worried that it's over now, but I don't know. So I'm back to Usagi Yojimbo. So those were some just quick check-ins. I also wanted to mention that I just started season 2 of X-Men the Animated Series.
Nice.
Because of the podcast previously on X-Men, we finished season 1, and now we just started season 2, which for you... I would think is a big moment because you were so into the whole they killed Morph.
I was.
And now these are the 2 issues where they bring him back.
Was shocking to me when it happened. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
this was the height of TV drama for me at this point, and I was already watching 90210. That's how dramatic. That's how dramatic this was.
But yeah, so we started that. So Mr. Sinister's been introduced to the series. Fun episodes. We talk about him on the Previously on X. Also, though, on Previously on X, we did a special just 8-minute episode because the first X-Men movie
that. Yeah.
Turned 20 years old this week.
Yeah.
20 years old. I don't know. Crazy, and at the same time, it also does feel like such a long time since the first X-Men movie.
Yeah, like a lifetime.
Like, it's not one of those movies I'm like, it can't be 20 years. I mean, I feel, if I think too hard about it, I'm like, oh God, I'm old. But, I mean, they've put out so many of these. It's been... 13 X-Men films and all that. So, it's not like we got X-Men 1, 2, and 3, and now we're like, wow, is that trilogy really that old? I mean, before everything. Before Spider-Man, before Iron Man, before Batman, before all these things that we now think of, as the modern superhero.
Yeah.
There was X-Men. So... Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like I think you made this point on one of the episodes that you've done recently, but I too get frustrated when people sort of sweep X-Men under the rug as if there was nothing until there was the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Yeah,
because
I think
the X-Men movies, I just love them so much. Even the ones that I like less, I just enjoy that world.
It's especially the first one. It just feels like people want to give it less and less credit.
Yeah.
As the years go on, but people like me will remember until I'm dead.
You'll keep the lights on.
But you know what's funny? I say that about X-Men, but I feel like I constantly have to include Blade whenever I talk about X-Men in terms of that, because there's only a 2-year difference between the two of them, and they're very similar in terms of what they do with their whole setup. Real gritty world. This could be your world, but it's also got vampires, but it's also got mutants.
I really think the difference there, I think the reason why X-Men is maybe held up higher than Blade is just because of the rating. I think a lot of that, because I wouldn't have been allowed to see Blade at that point, because it was it was an R-rated movie. I just don't think it was as, because of that, I think that cut off a lot of people.
I mean, Blade is it's an action movie. It's a Wesley Snipes action movie vehicle first, comic book adaptation second. So with X-Men, this wasn't like an actor's vehicle. They were definitely just trying to make an X-Men movie. And I think that's a big difference where like we got a good Blade film that was really cool and did this like crazy world, but like also convincing people to see a vampire film in the 90s isn't super hard. Yeah. Whereas like X-Men had a couple more things to knock down. But yeah, the two of them just really created this whole like you don't get Iron Man and Batman Begins without what Blade and X-Men were starting to lay down. Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Anyway, that's the gist of my stuff then. What else do you got? Did you read another kid's comic?
I did, yes. As far as comic books, the last thing I'll mention here just briefly is the DC Superhero Girls Volume 2 of the new series Powerless by Amy Wolfram. So I mentioned in an earlier episode that I was a fan of the Shea Fontana series that went for about, 9 or 10 volumes. It was good, it was good at what it did, and most of those
what it did wasn't very nice.
Yeah, no, but most of those were solid and good stories and had a good cross appeal. Would work for their intended audience. But I always enjoyed them, and I'm definitely not their intended audience.
All right.
First volume of the new series, I thought was a bit of a letdown. It was very chaotic, but this one it was Batgirl and Bumblebee were the main like lenses for the story, and that focused it in a way that you didn't feel like bloated with a million characters trying to each get in their own little memorable thing. Right. So this was really a Batgirl story with the Bumblebee like backup, like that was the B story, and everybody was in it, but it was just structured in a way that made the story a lot more fun and less like, okay, who is this? So I was impressed by the second one.
Okay.
The third one was originally set to come out in April, but that got delayed until,
whenever.
It should be out like the last couple of days was the new date. I haven't seen any notifications about that, so I don't know if they're pushing it again, but it's an ongoing series, but it was fun. Yep.
All right.
Yep. Well, should we dip into the
did you watch something?
Oh yeah, you want to talk?
Yeah.
You want to talk
you watched something.
Captain America Civil War? Yeah. So, as you're aware, we have been very slowly watching through the Marvel movies, almost as long as
you and your wife, not me and you.
Yeah, almost as long as it took them to make the Marvel Cinematic Universe is how long it's taken us to rewatch them, I feel like. So we watched Winter Soldier, and I was really happy with it and glad we did again because I really liked it, and I didn't have that experience the first time. I left Civil War with a less rosy experience than I had the first time. Where do you land on this one?
I like it, but like Captain America wise, I prefer Winter Soldier. I guess I like it, and there's a lot I like about it. I think I'm a bit annoyed these days because it seems to be the one they always take out whenever there's a DC versus Marvel argument, and I'm just like, there's other movies, people, we can argue about. And we don't need to argue anyway. And also the whole, like, the Civil War of it all is very quick. I know it's like what everybody loves the most about this movie, but it's like it's that one fight and then it kind of like moves on. But I really like the ending, like the last act between Captain and Iron Man and Bucky, like the emotions on display there.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you that I don't think it's the best showcase for Captain America. Like, I sort of had to keep reminding myself that it was like Captain America was the lens to watch this movie through because it's a Captain America movie.
It really does feel just like Avengers 3.
It does, and I feel like they don't spend as much time establishing Captain America's motive as I would like them to do. Mm-hmm. You know, for us to like buy Tony as the antagonist of the movie, I just think you need more. And in the comic books, it's almost like, depending on which version you're reading, it's like Tony is like a cartoonishly evil character in some titles of that run.
Yeah, Straczynski's Spider-Man.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
But I would have liked a little bit more fleshing out Captain America's motivations and his reasons, because it feels a little quick to me when that's what you're being asked to buy. So I too, I mean, I love the battle. I do. I love all of Spider-Man's lines. I love all of Ant-Man's lines. I just think there's a lot of really good stuff that happens in it. Mm-hmm. The introduction of Black Panther, I think, is really good, and the way they handle that character is good. Zemo, I think, is a really compelling villain, and maybe the only successful villain, it seems like. But I was a little bit more like the character dynamics of it all. I would have liked a little bit of a more depth, I think. There was my main complaint.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just a problem the MCU film have. I mean, the X-Men movies have it, the Spider-Man movies have it. Just this taking these characters and these stories that usually have months and months and months and issues to flesh things out. And we're getting these movies like every couple of years. It's the same thing. Like, you watch the Vision Scarlet Witch romance happen at like warp speed in these movies, because the movies just it's an episodic. The stories are normally episodic, and these movies can't be as quick as they need to be with that. So
I just felt a little whiplash, like, because we actually have watched Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, and Civil War in a matter of weeks. So a lot closer together than I ever had before. And I was a little struck by the whiplash of the Captain America character, because I feel like, what comes first? Is it Winter Soldier, then Avengers 2? What's the order?
Yeah, it's Winter Soldier, then Age of Ultron, then Civil War.
So in Winter Soldier, obviously, he's not about like the oversight that the government was bringing, because it's just like all Hydra, and he's very disillusioned by all of that. But then you turn it in Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, when Tony sort of goes rogue and decides that he's just going to make Ultron. Cap is very like on his case about, you need to be held accountable. You can't just do whatever you want. And that seems to be the premise of Civil War, that they need accountability, which was Cap's point in Age of Ultron, and he's so against it instantly in Civil War that I was
think the difference is Winter Soldier and Civil War have the Russos, and Ultron is Whedon, and I think Whedon has a vision of Captain America that the Russos don't necessarily share. I think Whedon's much more into the like overly Boy Scout kind of, there's that bit in Age of Ultron where he's like, language, because Tony swore. And I think that's how Whedon reads Captain America. And I think the Russos see him a little bit different. So
he's certainly a more nuanced character in Winter Soldier, or even First Avenger, I think, than later on. But
Age of Ultron
that inconsistency bothered me.
I think Age of Ultron gets in the way of a lot of the characters' own arcs that are happening in their own movies. In a way that like this, it gives Tony a reason to act the way he is in this. But if this had been Winter Soldier to Civil War, Cap probably tracks a little easier than the Age of Ultron skip, and it would make more sense because there's Cap actively looking for Bucky versus taking that break between Winter Soldier and Ultron, where he's like, let's just hang out and have a party. Thor can try
that's true.
I can lift Thor's hammer, maybe. So,
that's true.
Yeah. But I still like Civil War. I think this is the movie where people really started pointing out the colorization of these films and how like it's very like kind of grayed, and the hues and everything are very like dull, and it's not as like bright. Like the Avengers movie has a lot of color to it, and then we start getting to like Civil War, and I think people were like, Iron Man is wearing red, right? That is a blue outfit Captain America's wearing.
Right.
Especially because like the fight is in the airport, and so everything is just pavement, and then the white airplane. It's just I could use more color, I guess, in some of that stuff, but
that's true.
It's fine. Okay. All right. Our side segments now.
Let's do it.
All right. I don't know if you've ever read this Batman comic, Nick.
Okay, hit me.
The Batman pick of the week is Batman Legacy. Doug Munch, Chuck Dixon, Alan Grant, but not Alan Grant, who we would want to have here. So Batman Legacy is the graphic novel, and good luck finding it anywhere. I remember I got it interlibrary loan, but it will cost you. It's I think it's still out of print. It collects Batman 533 to 534, Shadow of the Bat 53, 54, some Catwoman, some Robin, Detective Comics 699 to 702. So I think you can read this on your DC app maybe, but getting the trade I think is a little trickier. The idea, there's a virus. This is pre No Man's Land, pre Cataclysm, and if I remember, Talia is being set up to marry Bane in this.
Oh.
Because Batman won't. And it's just, it's I remember it kind of being a sloppy story, and feeling like Ra's al Ghul is supposed to be this kind of tough villain that we're supposed to like always be like, oh, Batman has to deal with, but who never like wins anything, and that just kind of continued in here. And I remember Bane gets taken down real easy in this, which you would not think would be the case after reading like Nightfall.
Sure, yeah.
And this kind of feels, this feels like a kind of sequel to Nightfall and everything. But yeah, it's just this weird kind of moment in Batman history where like Ra's al Ghul and Bane are working together, and Azrael and Catwoman are there. It's just it's this strange moment in Batman history that like maybe just because I was reading it during Dark Knight Rises, like coming to theaters and whatnot, that I was like, is this it? I can't imagine they read this and then based that movie on it, but it's just I don't know what else you would have read to connect the two.
Yeah, it's interesting that there was a connection at all.
Yeah, so Batman Legacy would be the graphic novel, but again, you could read, you could find the Legacy story arc issue-wise, 533, 534, Batman, and Detective Comics 699, 702. So maybe it would be less sloppy if you skipped like the Catwoman and Robin series.
I'm not gonna skip Robin. What are you talking about?
I know. So anyway. It's just been this kind of like weird title. I remember like I wrote a blog about like movies that inspired the Dark Knight trilogy. I felt like I had to include this because it's like maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean it's hard to deny that connection.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was my Batman.
Did Robin
pick.
go by the name of John Blake?
No, he didn't.
He didn't. Okay.
But so he went by Mr. Tim Drake Robin.
I see.
And so Robin is the name he picked as his superhero name.
Okay.
Because so Drake is his maiden name, but when he became Batman's sidekick, he took the name Robin.
Took the name Robin
legally. So like now, when he goes to get his license, he always has to bring a form that shows that he changed his name from Tim Drake to Tim Drake Robin, which is a thing. Yeah.
Just make that character Dick Grayson. I don't get it. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry. I know. I hate it.
It's not like they felt compelled to follow other things super strictly. So just make that Dick Grayson. We're all fine with that.
Yep. Nope. Screw you and your comic book chronology, Nick.
I know.
Who are you?
Speaking of chronology, for the quarter bin this week, we're going to go back to the Silver Age. I've got a fun one for you today, Eric. It's very fun.
Okay.
It is Adventure Comics number 362 from the year 1967. Again, no creators' names are anywhere in this. What? So all I can tell you is the editor is Mort Weisinger.
So, like, DC would just put these out and be like, it's a DC comic, it's Superman, that's all you need to know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Work, writers, work!
Adventure Comics featuring Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes meet Dr. Mantis Morlow, the chemical conqueror, and his fantastic chemoids.
So the villain on this cover, the Dr. Mantis, he's the bald guy with the glasses.
He's not Sivana, even though he looks exactly like him the whole time. If that's your question. Yeah. But, you know, this was during the Shazam, like, Dark Ages, so it's possible that they were like, I'll take that.
Because on the cover, on the bottom, there's a bit of a Mary Marvel design.
Yeah, that's Dreamer. That's Dreamgirl.
Okay.
Yep, who is in Supergirl now on CW.
Oh. So, Dreamweaver!
Nia Nal.
Yeah.
All right.
But I could definitely see a kid who liked Captain Marvel, Shazam, and not having like the option, seeing this cover and being like, sure.
Yeah,
this will cover my bases.
Well, and you have Cosmic Boy in the background here, who does have kind of a Captain Marvel Jr. vibe going on, and then here's Superboy right in the front. So that's a good point. That's a good point because you have stand-ins for all of the Marvel family right
here. Just no Caterpillar.
You're a thing. Well, maybe he's small. He could be anywhere.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Like Ant-Man is in Civil War if you really want him to be.
Yeah.
Oh wait, exactly. Not Age of Ultron. Ant-Man's in the Age of Ultron if you want him to be.
He could be there. All right, so we open up and the Legion's just chilling.
Okay,
they want you to know that the Legion can have a good time too. So Superboy and Cosmic Boy are playing some spacey game, right? Karate Kid is painting. All sorts of just fun things are happening, but serious things happen too. Okay.
Okay.
So Brainiac 5 and the leader of the Legion of Superheroes, Invisible Kid, are monitored. And here's a confusing thing. There's Invisible Kid and Karate Kid, and they refer to both characters just as Kid.
Ugh.
Anyway,
Right.
they're monitoring for crime or other things that might need the Legion's attention, and they find that a deadly gas is poisoning the upper atmosphere. So they feel like that should probably be looked at.
Yeah.
So they head out.
Get Bouncing Boy.
Yeah, you need Bouncing Boy in there. There's actually a point where I think it's Invisible Kid is like, well, Bouncing Boy's not going to help on this one. And I'm like, well, find me a situation in which he would.
Yeah. No, what you're going to need against chemicals in the air is Karate Kid and Invisible Boy.
Yes, you do.
I'll use karate.
We cut to the base of Dr. Mantis Morlo and his henchman Gorn.
Yeah. It's Boz, actually.
Maybe not the Gorn from Star Trek, but Gorn.
Okay, Gorn. Yep.
Anyway, they're on a quest for the secrets of the universe, of course. They're trying to... It's very... I found it to be a little, like, I wasn't sure, like, given the age of this, if they were sort of playing on, like, a Nazi scientist vibe, because there was a lot of things that, to me, had some, like, historic parallels that you could see. So I kind of wondered if that's what they were doing. But they are basically experimenting to find information and, come up with new ways to harness power. And they don't care how they accomplish that as long as they do. All right. Okay. So they're very much an ends justify the means duo here with Dr. Mantis and the Gorn. Anyway, the Legion comes to confront him because he's a known entity, right? They come and tell him that, hey, man, the pollution experiments you're doing, it's destroying the world. And he's like, no, but it's cool because all the stuff I'm able to accomplish. And he shows them a miniature sun that he's created and is saying, like, I made this sun and now it can power like the whole world, like forever. So maybe just chill. But they're not like that, right? They're not like that. They're ready to fight. OK, so the Legion learns that Gorn is a chemoid. And that means that he is a creation of Dr. Mantis and can alter his being to be whatever you want. So suddenly he's metal. So Cosmic Boy uses his magnetic powers to hold him in place, but then Chemoid changes to a rock. So Light Lass taps in, and she uses her power to make him very light, so he's floating towards the top. Meanwhile, Sun Boy, no, not Sun Boy yet. Sorry, Star Boy. See how I got him confused? Star Boy makes him extra heavy, so he comes like crashing down, right? So he's temporarily out of the picture. Sun Boy, here's where Sun Boy comes in, wants to use his Sun Boy powers to melt Dr. Morlo's machines and, to stop him from doing this stuff, right? But Dr. Morlo is trying to murder him, right? He's like, I'm just going to kill you, Sun Boy, and he comes at him with a weapon. Chameleon Boy stops him, so everything's fine. The Legion's pretty satisfied that Morlo and Gorn are going to behave after this, and so they just leave him there. They feel like we talked to him, we worked it out, we're heading back, and they're fine with that, okay? And so Brainiac 5 is like, this reminds me of when we first met Dr. Morlo. So we learned that Morlo was a respected scientist, but it was discovered that he was taking human subjects and doing all sorts of terrible experiments on them to try to figure things out. Since none of the damage was permanent, though, he gets a pretty light prison sentence and is now released, and that's where we are now, right? So the Legion goes on, and they do some more heroing, just saving crap or whatever. But then they get some distressing news that their homeworlds are being targeted. So first they head to Orlando, the home of Princess Projectra. I know. Princess Projectra, right? They go to her home planet, and her father is very much like, we don't need the Legion here. How dare you bring the Legion here? Yeah. She finally convinces them that they're okay, and it's fine. And they figure out what the problem is on Orlando, and it's a thick smog.
Okay.
A thick smog.
Right. So this is like the LA planet.
Yes. Cosmic Boy tries to use his magnetism to like pull the magnetic fibers out of the smog, but it doesn't work. So Superboy does his spin thing and sucks it all up.
Right.
Well, now everybody's mad at Princess Projectra on this planet, and they think the smog came because she left them. And we're to learn that these people are very backwards in their scientific thinking, and they only focus on spiritualism. So she's explaining this whole spiritualism thing to Karate Kid and says that they even have an equivalent of a mistletoe, which she happens to be standing under. And Karate Kid makes out with her and then is like, sorry, I got carried away. End of scene. Meanwhile, Dream Girl and Bouncing Boy are investigating things in the library, helping Brainiac, who cracks the code. It's going to take a combination of Superboy, Cosmic Boy, and Karate Kid's powers to disrupt smog permanently. Their ship was damaged, so they hop in the Sky Chariot, which is like a chariot pulled by like lizard horse space lizards. And it drives them to the source of the smog, and we find out that it's the flying citadel of Dr. You guessed it, Morlo. They think they have him, but he turns the tables and unleashes an entire army of chemoids. The Legion puts up a valiant fight, but they are quickly overpowered, and Dr. Morlo gives the order to kill the Legion. And then, I don't know because it ends there, and I've never read the conclusion, so I don't know what happens. I don't think the Legion dies.
Right. But this is just another one of those eternal cliffhangers for you.
I don't know what happens.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know what happens in Adventure Comics 363. How did you feel about that? Were you excited by it?
A lot going on.
A lot. Really a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't even... Not only do we not find out if they got killed, but they said also that Mon-El's planet, Daxam, and one other planet were under attack under this same thing, but they just, like... They go to Projector's planet. So I don't know if the future issues would be set on Daxam or something like that, but... You have to assume that other things are going on and the Legion's going to pull through. But again, I don't know. Maybe it's like a Western and they're all going to die.
Yeah, maybe. That'd be something.
Yeah. Great cover, though.
Great
cover.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Very, very clever of you noticing the Shazam connections. I'm impressed by that.
So when you say dark era, like dark ages for Shazam, that's like DC has like, if you use this character, we will sue you into the ground? Or they own... So they don't even own Shazam at this point?
Not yet. Shazam is just like a dead property right now.
Okay.
And it's funny. It's funny how much like the genre has changed because yes, Superman and Shazam both wear a cape and have dark hair, and yes, they're both strong, but their stories are just so wildly different. Oh. You know? Like those characters just aren't similar.
Yeah, especially the Legion era.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my quarter bin selection for today.
All right.
It was a nice stroll through the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Bouncing Boy, that you got cut out of that one, but
the power stayed on this time.
Yeah, that's good.
So we were able to finish the episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Did you notice that I'm wearing a different shirt? You didn't say anything. But...
Oh, you are. Yeah, because you had that one shirt that looked like a Castlevania logo.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't. It was just mountains. But yeah, I had to, we had clothes on the line, so I had to grab clothes really quick.
Oh, that's funny. I got
drenched.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
Live. What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? All right. Well, that's the end of the episode. So thank you for watching Comic Book Coffee Break. He's been Nick Gunning. I've been Eric Mickles.
See you next time.
Yeah, is that how we ended now? We don't have an ending. Again, this is Radio Meanwhile Network. You can find more about this show and others like it on our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com, where you can find links to past episodes of this, as well as just finding them on YouTube. So
that's right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.